It gets even better because right now it's on sale. Purchase 3 bags and get the 4th bag free. We're open 7 days a week. Take Exit 49 off the Henday.
Just googly Google KUHLMANNS.
Imagine being the difference in a young person's life. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, we create life-changing friendships. Visit bigbrothersbigsisters.ca today to donate or volunteer. Your involvement can shape a future.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free radio player app and listen wherever you go.
If you're without personal health insurance benefits from your employer and are self-employed or retiring, contact Innovative Benefits. Innovative Benefits helps break down personal health plans to put you in the driver's seat and reduce your net cost. They'll help identify the best plan for you and your family so you can pay for what you do use and look how to reduce what you don't use. Don't be left out in the cold. Understand all your options with Innovative Benefits. For more information, visit innovativebenefits.ca today.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Good morning. Welcome to Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with our guest producer today. Brandon Douglas joins us. Brandon, thanks so much for making time today.
Paul, my pleasure. Always great to get the chance to chat with you. It's for a little bit of extended period today, so that's even better on my behalf.
I've been looking forward to it as well. Our good friend Josh Fenwick is off for the weekend, heading up north, so Brandon has agreed kindly to step in, and we're looking forward to our discussions and his expertise of running the show. Our text line, 833-401-1440. Again, 833-401-1440. If you have anything that you would like to discuss, any observations that you may have about the completed now Western Conference battle between the Spurs and the Wolves. That's number one, of course, but the Cavs and the Pistons are going to Game 7. Very cool. I don't think people expected that, really, both from the standpoint of how the Pistons played, but also how the Cavs kind of folded like an accordion last night. Also, you can, our X account is at Hoop City Show. And make sure, if you have any questions, 833-401-1440. Our show today is a great one. We have as our community champion a young man who played his high school basketball at St. Francis Xavier, and then I had the privilege of coaching in my tenure over at Concordia University. And now Jacob Ochecki and his brother Nathaniel are doing great things in the community. And I'm excited to welcome Jacob to our show at the 1020 segment today. And then we have on a young man from Winnipeg, Joey Slattery. And for Edmontonians who aren't familiar with Joey, he has been on a lot of sports talk programs across the country. And I think Joey's filled in here, hasn't he, Brandon, at some point? I think there's a good chance because he does a lot of sports work. He does a ton in the CEBL. In our first segment of the deep dive at the top of the hour, Joey and I are going to dive into what's going on with the early games in the CEBL, how the league is shaping up, and then we're going to go into a variety of other topics. So lots to talk about, of course. But, Brandon, I think we have to start with the games last night. As the playoffs have gone on, we saw last night a couple of very divergent outcomes. I guess my first question to you would be, were you surprised at either or both outcomes, and which one surprised you the most?
maybe if I don't know if I was surprised by either outcomes. I was looking forward to a potential game 7 here between the Pistons and the Cavaliers. So that maybe, fell in line with where I was tracking. And I believe I'm probably in the majority of others where I say I expected the Spurs to win this series and find themselves head to head with the OKC Thunder. They've been the best two teams in probably the entirety of the NBA all season long. But maybe it's the manner of which the Spurs defeated the Timberwolves, that they've been such a gritty team. And maybe it's just the fact of the injuries. We know Edwards is not playing at 100%. The other guys absent from their lineup caught up with them, and they go out with, maybe a little bit of a whimper here by losing by 30 points. So maybe that was a surprising nature, that gritty underdog mentality. The Timberwolves just kind of seemed to run out of steam here a little bit at the end of the second round.
I think that's well summarized too, Brandon, because I think gritty can only take you so far.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to have ability. And when your two bigs are scoreless in the case of Rudy Gobert,
mm-hmm.
who looked absolutely like somebody that just shouldn't have been out there, to be honest. Not that Rudy wasn't trying hard, but it really looked like, and especially in this game, you want to be fair, but it looks like time has passed him by, not just in the fact that Rudy's, I think, 34 years old, but honestly, that style of post player without any real offensive game. I was texting back and forth with my brothers who live down in the Twin Cities last night when they were watching the game. And my question to them was, what does he work on in practice offensively? Like, he has literally no offensive moves last night. It was just a humiliating offensive performance. And again, he tries hard and he changes some shots, and he's been defensive player of the year in the league for 4 years. I mean, Rudy Gobert very well could end up being, dare I say, a Hall of Famer. And wouldn't that be weird? But the guy that I was most disappointed in is Julius Randle. And I think Randle's day, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I think Randle's days in Minnesota might be very limited. 2 points for a guy you're paying that much money to, that is that inefficient on offense. But I would go one step further, and we can talk about this if you want. Let's talk about this a little bit, about that game. There were 2 things going on at the same time, I thought, Brandon. Number one, the Spurs can't play any better than that. They were phenomenal. They were absolutely phenomenal. When Castle came into the league, the big gap in his skill set, nobody had any doubt he was going to be a solid NBA player, but he couldn't shoot the basketball very well. Well, that certainly has changed, and that's historically something that the San Antonio Spurs do better than anybody. And I think history continues to repeat itself. And I'll say this, when Kawhi Leonard came in to the Spurs organization from San Diego State, he couldn't shoot the ball at all. And the Spurs had a guy on staff by the name of Chip England, who has a bit of a Canadian, in fact, Alberta connection. England was a player at Duke, a great shooter, and he played in the WBL, I think it was called, for the Calgary 88s, Calgary 88s. And that was a 6'5" and under pro league back in the 80s. England could really shoot the ball, and he became the shooting coach for the San Antonio Spurs. And he worked with Kawhi Leonard, who has evolved into a very good, very competent shooter, both from the 3 and his mid-range game, which he's famous for as well. Now you see with Castle, he's obviously put the work in and has become a very good shooter. But look at everybody else. De'Aaron Fox, my God, great game. Vassell, fantastic. Champagne, I think, is how they pronounce it. And, I always wonder if it's just going to go with Champagne, but they don't. And then, of course, the great unveiling of what we can expect over the years that a Victor Wembanyama is going to be able to produce as a player. And this is said many, many times, Brandon, we really have not seen a player like this before in the NBA.
He certainly earned the nickname, right? The alien, because he is unlike anything. And you could use the expression, the unicorn, in the same sense, because we've thought of players in this mold in the past, but he's doing take your pick of other guys that have kind of changed the game a little bit and doing things that we haven't seen. Well, all of a sudden, Wembanyama, at his size, at his length, but still with the skill and the finesse that he possesses in his game is kind of rolling it all into one package that is genuinely unseen before at this level of basketball. So it's a treat to watch, I think, first and foremost. And I definitely don't think it's out of line or anything particularly scandalous to say he's probably the most entertaining player to watch across the entirety of the NBA. And that's with full respect to the reigning MVP and SGA, who's going to be up next on the docket for this club in the Western Conference Final. But just what Wemby can do at both ends of the court and realistically all over the hardwood, not just in tight, not just from out deep, but everywhere. It's really, really exceptional.
It really is exceptional, and that was very well put. And I think like the thing with Wembanyama is his skill set, yes, but he's a great basketball player.
Yeah.
Last night he had 19 points. It's not like he's going off for 38 every night. And on this particular team, what I appreciate about him and his entire team is they make the right plays for each other. Wembanyama last night passed up shots to get his teammates better shots. That's a sign of a high basketball IQ player, not just a long, athletic, gifted player with a skill set we really haven't seen before. Now, there was a precursor to this. Back in the 80s, a guy named Ralph Sampson, who played at the University of Virginia. Ralph was 7'4", and at the time, he was a bit of a unicorn because he would bring the ball up the court. He would shoot then the mid-range shot and the occasional three. But what I would say would be Ralph doesn't have the athleticism quite at the same level that Wemby has, but also he certainly didn't have the refined skill set. But I think what it was a glimmer, like Magic Johnson as a 6'9" point guard. You have glimmers historically that show that something could be done with players at a certain size that stereotypically over the decades, you think, no, a big guy like that, can't walk and chew gum at the same time. You got to park him in the low block, and he's going to be really limited. That isn't Wemby anymore. He has truly made his position and the way he plays his positionless. And now he not only is evolving into the great player he is, but his teammates around him are coming together too. They have zero playoff experience with the exception of Harrison Barnes on that team, Brandon. And they are evolving and growing every game and rounding into a very, very compelling team and setting up what I think will be a phenomenal Western Conference championship series coming up. We'll talk about that a bit more later, but I don't want to leave this segment without touching on Detroit and Cleveland last night. I thought it was really interesting because I think when Cleveland beat Detroit, people thought, well, that's it. Cleveland's found itself. James Harden isn't the typical playoff James Harden that we expect, where he's going to choke and the team that he's on isn't going to do that well. But Harden played really well, but Donovan Mitchell found his game all of a sudden after, a fair amount of deserved criticism in the opening couple of games in Detroit. Mitchell played very well in Cleveland and was solid in Detroit in the Game 5 Cavalier win. But then they go back to Cleveland. And I don't know if you saw any of the game last night, but man, oh man, the term not ready for prime time, did that ever apply to the Cleveland Cavalier team last night? Brandon, they didn't look like they even wanted to be out there.
No, it almost seemed like they'd returned home and said, "Yeah, don't even bother unpacking the bags. That's fine, right? We'll head back to Detroit for game number 7 and be content with that," because it really was from the onset of the game right through its conclusion. Where it's funny, so much of the discussion around the Pistons this postseason has been after Cade Cunningham, right? Like who's scoring for them, because a couple of their bigger name guys, maybe particularly Tobias Harris and Jalen Duren, have come up short quite a bit, and especially in that near first round upset at the hands of the Magic. But they're just doing it by association. Like Cunningham leads the way with just 21 last night. You get some great bench contributions, and the Cavaliers just seem content to hand it over to them. And now all of a sudden it boils down to that always favorite topic of basketball pundits across America and beyond: James Harden playing in a game 7. And I'm right there with you, Paul, where I think Harden has been just fine in this series. I don't know if he's done enough, even with that one big game, to totally debunk this reputation that has followed him around in his career so far. But opportunity knocks large for him to at least put a dent in it with this clinching game and advance through to the East Final potential.
It's interesting because Harden's reputation he drags along with him, and so he's under a unique microscope. To your point, Brandon, and yet, like as you also I think correctly point out, he's actually been okay throughout this series. And last night he had 23 and a fairly efficient 23. And I think that what you've got now is the inability of the rest of the team to support Harden's efforts by playing well. Mobley was bad. Mitchell was bad. You can't have those kind of performances from your key players. They did not look prepared. And it's interesting you point out that it looked like they were ready to just fold up the not unpack the suitcases and go right back to Detroit and try to compete in a Game 7 level. But I think it's just more they weren't ready. Maybe they were overconfident. Maybe not. Maybe the coach didn't have them mentally ready to play. Maybe not. You really can't tell at this point in time what that was. But I think what this does is sets up a very interesting scenario of how are the Cavaliers going to regroup after this loss. They lost at home to a disappointed crowd. The pressure in Cleveland is probably higher than for any other team in the NBA right now to perform. They have gone all in. They have invested everything in this team, and it's expressly with the goal of getting to the NBA Finals. And anything short of that, I think, is going to result in a serious question on whether or not their coach is going to be fired, whether or not they're going to blow the organization up and trade players away. I'm really curious to see how this will happen. Now, Brandon, also, you made a great point about the balanced scoring last night, which is highly unusual for the Detroit Pistons, of players not named Cade Cunningham scoring in double figures across the board. Jalen Duren has been a real disappointment in the series so far. I think Tobias Harris has been up and down, hot and cold. I think that's kind of who he is. I don't think he's that good, so to speak, anyway, and that's really what you should grow to expect from him. But they did get meaningful contributions from other players, and they need to get Duncan Robinson back and healthy, because Robinson, who is a great story in and of himself, I'll tell it in just a second, but they need to get Duncan Robinson back, because his ability to shoot the deep three consistently is what takes a lot of pressure off Cade Cunningham and gives him a lot more space to operate in when Duncan Robinson's on the court. For those that don't know Duncan Robinson's story, he started at a Division III school down in the U.S. He was not recruited out of high school by any Division I programs at all. He did really well there, All-American at the D3 level, made the big jump, transferred over to the University of Michigan in the Big Ten, did really, really well. And I think that, now he's gone into the NBA and continued to work on his game, and he's carved a niche out for himself to the point now where he's a valuable asset. He was for the Miami Heat when they got to the NBA Finals, and now he's a valuable asset for the Detroit Pistons, and really an essential piece if they want to compete with the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to take a break right now. We have a lot more NBA to talk about later in the show, but we're going to, as I said, we'll take this break, and when we come back, we're going to do our Community Champion segment, and I'm excited to welcome into the studio the young man that I had the opportunity to coach and to know along with his brother, and it's really an exciting time for me to be able to have Jacob Wachecki with us in the studio. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with Brandon Douglas on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
Running a business is tough. New customers shouldn't be. Stop chasing leads. Let them come to you with Stingray, offering you access to more digital, outdoor, and traditional advertising platforms, including radio, connected TV, search and social, programmatic, digital advertising, and digital out of home. So while you're closing the next deal, Stingray is working for you to deliver more leads, more customers, more sales. It's that easy. Get started now at stingraymediasolutions.com, and always be closing.
What keeps Alberta business moving? It's pallets, whether you're shipping, manufacturing, or looking for in-house storage solutions. Hi, it's Andrew with the Pallet Recycler here in Edmonton, and we've been providing reliable, affordable, recycled, and custom pallets for local businesses for the past 30 years. Contact the Pallet Recycler at 825-474-1981 to find out why recycled pallets are the most cost-effective way to move and store your product. Learn about our recycling program as well at thepalletrecycler.ca.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Safety, reliability, and uncommon value. Visit Subaru.ca.
If you've got a smart speaker, get it to play Sports 1440.
And it doesn't matter when you listen as we roll out the Sports Talk
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Edmonton's home for sports radio is Sports 1440.
If you're without personal health insurance benefits from your employer and are self-employed or retiring, contact Innovative Benefits. Innovative Benefits helps break down personal health plans to put you in the driver's seat and reduce your net cost. They'll help identify the best plan for you and your family so you can pay for what you do use and look how to reduce what you don't use. Don't be left out in the cold. Understand all your options with Innovative Benefits. For more information, visit innovativebenefits.ca today.
Around the world, from London,
Tokyo, Japan,
New York, this is News Central.
London, Tokyo, New York, Ottawa, Sao Paulo. Right now, the world's greatest newsrooms are on the air. BBC World Service, CNN, Fox News Radio, MS Now, AP Radio. Every perspective, every language, every breaking story live on TuneIn. Because when the news is big, one source is never enough. Download the TuneIn app to listen or search news on TuneIn to stay in the know.
Saturday mornings means it's time for some basketball talk. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
It's a Temptations weekend on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Temptations are one of my favorite bands. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, and I'll tell you what, you wouldn't think funk and soul would be at the top of the list for a lot of people, but it certainly was for me. And I fell in love with the Temptations really young, saw them on TV doing their choreographed dances. I love their music, and so every song we feature today through our last segment will be the Temptations. Community Champion segment. This is my favorite segment every week because we celebrate what's going on in the community, and the way we celebrate it is by talking with people who walk the walk. They don't just talk the talk. And we all know in any sports world, there's a lot of people that talk a lot, but there aren't a lot of people that put the work in, that roll their sleeves up and do the work. And the young man that I have with us today certainly is one of those guys. And Community Champions is sponsored by Innovative Benefits. If it's time for you to review your company benefits, personal insurance plans, or investment strategies, talk to Randy Parrish and his team at Innovative Benefits. They will give you straightforward and honest advice with access to the best products in the industry. Trust the great folks at Innovative Benefits to do what's best for you, your family, and your business. To find out more, go to innovativebenefits.ca. Jacob Wachecki joins me in the studio right now. And I first saw Jacob at a high school basketball game. And what stood out to me was, number one, for a young high school guy at 6'4", 6'5", probably ran Jacob at that time about 275 to 280. He's a big, strong, physical, aggressive player. And he had a level of aggressiveness that you just don't see oftentimes in high school. He was always battling. And I thought that would be so much fun to coach and try to work with and help Jacob refine his skills as a basketball player. And Jacob kindly agreed to come over and play for me for the Concordia Thunder. And now Jacob, after post-college career, is still heavily involved in the basketball community. And I welcome Jacob Ochecki into the studio today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you here. And of course, anybody that's watching on YouTube, you know who he resembles and he gets asked about all the time. So we won't go there. Jacob, talk about, like, I mean, you have got the physical, you've got the physical look of a football player. You obviously played football. You also played basketball. What was it that drew you to basketball? And I guess what were the reasons why you wanted to pursue that at a post-secondary level?
I think I played a lot of sports. I played soccer as well.
That must have been scary when you were bearing down the field.
I was in the net.
Oh, were
most
you?
of the time, but I don't think I wasn't amazing. I was just a big guy, right?
Yeah.
But once basketball kind of came into my life, and it was a little bit later, must have been 14 or 15, and it just kind of I got the bug for it, and I just found myself waking up and just wanting to play, and everything else kind of fell by the wayside sports-wise eventually. I'm not sure why. I just love the game. Just fell in love with the game.
Well, and that love has continued after you played college basketball. I'm assuming you played some men's league, local recreational basketball.
Yep.
But where you've really thrown your heart and soul and put the time in is into your club program. So tell us about your club program.
Well, first off, the people over at Emmy Lazert, especially Thomas Houghton, they've been fantastic in giving me a place to play out that passion. But yeah, the club program, coaching really, that bug that I was saying to you about, kind of taking over, that coaching bug is even bigger.
So is what you're, and I hear this from a lot of former players, is that when they get into coaching, they almost enjoy it more than playing.
I do 100%. Yeah.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. I think there's definitely some sort of reflective process in it. I find myself being a better player by coaching. It's almost like if you say you have to do it type thing.
You do it.
Even if I'm picking up and playing with the kids or I'm playing with friends or whatever, you just makes you better as a person and as a player too.
Okay, what's the name of your club?
OTB.
Okay, OTB, and you have a website?
Yes.
Okay, what is that?
OTBacademies.com.
Okay, OTBacademies.com. What's your motivation for this? And I'll frame it just a little bit. There are a lot of clubs now. Lots of clubs. There is a wealth of opportunity and a variety of motivations on who is running the club, what parents and athletes are trying to take from their experience in playing for the clubs. What's Jacob Ochecki's motivation? What is your focus and what you want the athletes that play for you to experience?
We obviously want to give them a good quality basketball experience, but
and by that, do you mean teaching them fundamentals, skills, etc.?
Yeah, fundamental skills, and most importantly to me is conceptual basketball. I think there's way too much focus on ball skills, whereas the vast majority of playing is off ball. And so much of the game now is just standing and watching one guy with the ball, and it's just. I mean, in the NBA, it works for a reason. Everyone's so good, everyone's so long,
right?
But the kids imitate that. You watch kids will, the kids play what they see.
And they mimic their heroes, that's for sure.
Yeah, but having someone that can actually play off the ball is so difficult for other teams to handle. So we really try to focus on, also still focus on the on ball stuff, but off ball, and there's a commitment to defense, kind of an old school approach, but fun. Making sure that everything stays fun and engaging and community focused, and we want to make sure kids have a place to socialize. A place to be in person, something to love, a passion, all these kind of things. Our focus is not necessarily producing, world beaters or anything like that. Like, we really just want to have, a program that's affordable, engaging, and socially conscious.
So I'm a parent now, and Jacob Ochecki comes in, or I have the opportunity, I run into him, however it comes about. A friend tells me, you really should talk to this guy. what would you tell mom and dad what you're going to offer to their son and daughter? Now, do you coach boys and girls?
Yeah, we have boys and girls teams. I'm coaching 2 girls teams right now.
Okay.
U15 and a U17 girls team.
So what would you tell them? Why should I play for Jacob Wachecki's club?
If you want an experience that's going to provide you those basketball skills we talked about, and you want to do so in a competitive environment, but you want individual growth through the focus, and you want to be empowered to play the game, then come join us. We're not, winning is not the end all be all. It's about development.
But Jacob, I want you all these other coaches are telling me they're going to put me into situations where my son or daughter are going to get a scholarship to go down to the U.S. I mean, you're not promising me that?
I never will. It's honestly, I've seen lots of kids get sold down the river. The promises of the States, is the allure of the States is always the big one here. And I went down and I played in the States for a while after high school, and just in the AAU circuit. And it's the competition here is fantastic. It's an extremely high level. There's tons of places and schools to play at here. The allure is just like what is it for? There are kids that are well deserved to go down and play at a very high level, Div 2, Div 1, this kind of stuff. But that's not the case for everybody. There's only so many spots, right? It's a zero-sum game. And to promise parents, to promise kids that is just, I think, very disingenuous.
Disingenuous, but also, I think, misleading about what you're going to carry forward from basketball into your life. What I'm hearing from you, Jacob, and I know you, and I know that character development, that personality development, that feeling safe, not just safe, because safe can also be misconstrued in a number of different ways, but feeling like you're part of something, that what you do matters. Talk about how important that is at the heart and soul of what you're doing in your club. Yeah.
We want the people involved, parents, kids, coaches to like you said, to have something to carry forward. And it's there's something to do with the social fabric or social fiber of everything going on around us, like the interconnectivity that we can develop through basketball, like whatever medium we're using. But for me, it's basketball because that's what I love. But just trying to put that back out in the world, I think it's so important, especially in today's day and age.
And what I'm hearing you say, or let me rephrase that, is what you're saying, that you're trying to inject a counter experience that a lot of kids are facing every day through social media, through the hype, through you're trying to wedge into there a real life experience of skill development, of team camaraderie, of self-esteem, of positivity. Is that at the heart and soul of what you're doing?
Yeah, that's it. It's relatively simple.
Now, this is a big sacrifice, Jacob, for you and your family. I mean, you've got 2 children, 2 beautiful children. You're obviously your wife. I'm sure she's thrilled every day when you're gone a lot in pursuing your passion. But I mean, talk about the real. I use the term walking the walk. Talk about what it really involves when you walk the walk. When you're the head of an organization, you're responsible for not just kids, but families and coaches and schedules and travel. Talk about the time commitment that really involves.
Oh, it's all consuming. Like it's definitely a full-time thing, more than a full-time thing. But the truth is, the truth is I don't really have a choice. I'm just doing what I love, and it just kind of it flows out from that. Like there's no choice in the matter. I have to do what I have to do.
It's really, and it's not a word I like, but I think it's an apt description. There's a bit of an intoxication factor when you're involved, because you wake up and you think, how can I be better today? How can I make it a better experience for everybody today? Is that similar to yourself?
Yeah. I think I would I would talk about the two teams I'm coaching right now. I have multiple kids on these teams that have never played basketball before. A lot of these kids, they don't even know that club basketball exists, or spring league, this kind of stuff exists. Especially on our side of the city, there's a lot less development.
You're on the north side.
Yeah, the north and northeast.
Yes.
And there's just a lot less exposure.
Right.
So a lot of them have never been to a tournament beyond a school tournament, this kind of stuff. And we're teaching stuff at a level that's would be taught at a much younger age elsewhere. And you watch these girls, and like the victories that we take out of it, like we lose games by 40, 50 points, and that's not what matters. What matters is you watch the individual victories, you watch how much encouragement and empowerment they get out of succeeding at little tasks and little things throughout the season. It's a practice or a game. You watch them develop concepts like spacing, and learning how to move off the ball, learning how to V-cut, just very basic stuff. And you watch them attach themselves to those victories, and how they like pull themselves up and pull each other up. And it's just like how can you not want to be a part of something like that?
Well, and I think too, Jacob, the fact that you're doing this with kids that don't bring tremendous skills and all this ability, and they don't have all these people in their ears saying, "Oh, you got to come. You're the greatest. I'm gonna, come play for me. I'm gonna do all this for you," which 99% of the time isn't true. But what you're trying to do is reach people at the level. You're trying to meet them where they're at, and then help them become the best version of themselves in that space. Correct?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
What do you think the biggest challenge will be for youth basketball going forward, Jacob?
I mean, definitely fighting that, like finding a place between monetization and running a program that's socially conscious. It's definitely I want to make a living doing this, right? But finding that medium where where things come out as fair, or come out as something that the community would accept and be happy with. I think that's a huge hurdle for everybody. I think that's probably for all youth sports. But yeah, that's definitely a huge issue.
Final question. Like you said, this is not just your passion and your commitment. You're a missionary of sorts, but this is also a business of sorts as well. How do you find the balance? Because you're in an area socioeconomically where there are lots of challenges. How do you work with kids and families so that it can be affordable for them to be able to participate in your club?
Like we try to keep the fees as absolutely low as possible. We engage, we have coaches volunteering. So our coaches are just, incredible people to be out there and
they certainly are
helping out. And we try to mitigate all that. We try to help families with kid sport access. There's a lot of families that don't have, English as a first language. So trying to help through all that, and, helping kids in whatever way we can. If a kid can't pay, we try to help in whatever way possible. If a kid's engaged and doing whatever they can, we want to do the same. So.
Well, I mean, for me, you check all the boxes, Jacob,
Thank you.
But I'm not surprised at that because of the person you are. And it's an absolute pleasure today. And I do want to also give a shout out to someone you mentioned earlier, Thomas Houghton, over at Emily Lazert. You talk about another champion of trying to work with the community for all the right reasons to provide access for kids to be able to play affordably in a good, safe environment. Shout out to Thomas. And of course, to your brother, Nathaniel. He runs this wonderful Sunday morning program for little ones. And by little ones, I mean 5 and under, that it's just anarchy and chasing butterflies. But it is a wonderful introduction to the positivity that sport can provide, where it's just about fun. But most importantly, Jacob, thank you so much for being here today. What is your website, please?
OTBacademies.com.
OTBacademies.com. Can people follow you on social media?
Yes, same handle everywhere.
Okay, so at OTB Academies?
Yep.
Okay. So, folks, I had Jeremy Pastorero on not too long ago, the WEBA program. Very similar in terms of the values that you espouse at OTB. And I know they're no strangers to you since you played it at SFX. But there are some real gems in this marketplace where people aren't just out there trying to monetize and making promises that they can't keep. And I'm not trying to paint everybody with the same brush, but there's a lot of that. Jacob, you're in that category of truly being in this for the kids. It's easy. Again, it's easy to talk the talk. You walk the walk. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Jacob Ochecki, our community champion this week on Hoop City with Paul Sir. We're going to take a break, and Brandon and I will be right back after these messages.
Hey, it's Jamie from Green Drop Lawn Care. They may be teeny tiny, but chinch bugs can completely devastate your lawn or garden. If you have yellowing grass that doesn't improve with watering, you may already have them. At Green Drop, we'll identify them, treat them, and help you recover from the damage before it's out of control. Stop chinch bugs cold with Green Drop Lawn Care, Canada's lawn expert since 1979. Find out more and get started at greendrop.com.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. The perfect choice for Alberta's challenging weather and road conditions. Visit Subaru.ca.
At the Italian Center Shop, there's always something new to discover.
Ciao, Gino.
Ciao, Teresa.
Gino, what do you think the most underrated thing at the shop is right now?
Easy. Burrata.
I knew he would say that. It's such an amazing cheese.
Creamy and perfect to serve with simple ingredients like olive oil and sea salt.
Burrata is my go-to on my table to serve my guests.
Exactly. And anyone that tastes it for the first time will understand.
Come find your new favorite food
at the Italian Center Shop
with 4 locations to serve you.
More than a grocery store.
Stay in the know with news on TuneIn. TuneIn brings together news stations from around the world so you can hear what's happening as it happens. From breaking updates to in-depth coverage, it's all in one place. Listen to stations like CNN, BBC World Service, Fox News Radio, MS Now, Sky News, and more to stay connected wherever you are. When the story changes, you'll hear it first. Download the TuneIn app to listen or search news on TuneIn to stay in the know.
I'm Rick Showers from Noble RV, and I want to give you something for free. A free roof assessment on your used RV. And remember, basically every RV is a used RV.
What do I get for my free roof assessment, Rick?
Well, Bob, we're going to climb up on top of your RV and take a good detailed look at your roof. Check all the joints, connections, and seals. Then we'll give you a written report so you know exactly what's going on up there. You should do this at least twice a year.
You're just doing this out of the goodness of your heart, Rick?
Cards on the table, Bob. About 1 in 10 RVs we see have something wrong with the roof. If yours is one of them, then yes, we're going to offer to sell you a repair. But we'd rather do a small repair when your leak is small than sell you a big, expensive repair when it's so bad you can see it from the inside. And you don't have to accept our offer to fix it. It really is free either way. So come by Noble RV and know for sure.
And that's Noble. NobleRV.ca.
This is Hoop City with your host, Paul Sir, on your home for hoops. Sports 1440.
Welcome back. Psychedelic Shack by the Temptations, 1969, 1970. One of many, many great songs by the Temptations. Great segment with Jacob Ochecki. You know, there's so many people in the community that really, truly give so much of their time and energy trying to provide wonderful, meaningful experiences that will help build not just character, but also create memories and create a sense of belonging that can move and permeate into the rest of their lives. Hopefully help them be better students in the classroom, be a better teammate, be a better friend, develop work habits and a work ethics that will carry through to their careers. People like Jacob are in the community providing that for your young people. Because let's face it, the odds of going to the NBA are about 1 in a billion. Number one, the odds of going Division I are 1 in almost a billion. Although we've done great, there are great things being done locally. There's a lot of Albertans and a couple of Edmontonians that are playing Division I basketball. That's great. But out of how many hundreds and thousands of players? So you want the experience to be meaningful and productive and provide them with a lot more than just pursuing that dream. You want it to be something meaningful. Jacob and his volunteers certainly do that. All right. We were talking about, of course, what happened yesterday. Timberwolves get slapped by 30. Spurs are moving on to play against OKC and the Thunder. That's going to be really interesting. But Brandon, I'm going to go into some quick hitters here, and we're going to talk about after effects. Let me put it that way. Let's start out with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, we mentioned in our opening remarks, Cleveland went all in. I mean, I think they're in the second apron, paying just huge amounts of penalties to put this team together in order to pursue a championship for the Cavalier franchise and for the Cavalier faithful. But if Cleveland loses, even after a 64-win season last year and a 50-something win season this year, do you think their coach is going to get fired? I mean, we had a tough week this week in Edmonton with Knobloch being fired, and it wasn't like the Oilers didn't make the playoffs. They did. A lot of teams didn't, but that wasn't good enough, and the management decided it was time to make a change. Think the Cavaliers might do something similar?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because at a certain point when you have teams that come up short of expectations, and I think it's fair to say the Cavaliers have in this Donovan Mitchell era, you're limited sometimes by what changes you can make. Now, some teams, Chicago Bulls, at times have shown a reluctance to kind of go full scorched earth. They finally commit to that this season, and they're rewarded with some lottery luck in the process. Now, is Cleveland as an organization ready to return to that level of starting over? I don't know. I think when you still have a guy like Donovan Mitchell who can be a real difference maker over the course of an entire season, I think the coach just kind of stands out as an obvious starting point to maybe get a fresh voice, give it one more kick at the can with this kind of core group, if you want to call it that, of players at your disposal with some tweaking around the fringes to try and get back into competition of what is still a very much wide open Eastern Conference. I know the Knicks have clearly looked the dominant favorite so far this postseason, but we know that how quickly things can turn on a dime and how much injuries play a role. If a team loses one guy out of its starting five or even a superstar player, well, they essentially punt on the year and kind of just look forward to the next campaign. So it's unfortunate. Now, if the Cavaliers win this game 7 and get dispatched by the Knicks in, goodness, even 4 or 5 games, does that conversation change at all? Because, yeah, you won the second round, but to what avail? Like what did you gain in the process? So that's almost where my next line of thinking goes is, let's pretend the Cavaliers can pull this off and win on the road in Game 7. Does it even matter? Is their coach still on the same level of a hot seat going into this conference final matchup with the Knicks should they advance?
All good points. I think if they do get to the conference finals, as you correctly say, it is a different conversation because they got further than they did last year when they got bumped by the Pacers unexpectedly.
Yes.
After a 64-game dominant regular season. So I think getting to the conference finals, if the coach has any chance, Atkinson has any chance of staying, that's kind of the baseline. If they don't get there, I think he's probably gone. I'm also curious, though, about what happens to Donovan Mitchell. And from this standpoint, like they have built this team around him, and he is an outstanding talent, but he has decided not to sign his extension. So he could play next season, and if the Cavaliers don't move him, then they run the risk of having nothing to show for his being in Cleveland. And that's a big risk to me. Mm-hmm. And I think Donovan Mitchell has the marketability, albeit in an NBA that views trading very, very differently than they have in the past. And I think particularly with the kind of draft that is going to be really fascinating to watch this year in terms of what players are drafted by whom and how deep this draft goes, because everybody talks about it being some great talent at the top, but also a lot of talent as you go down even into the teens in the first round. That could be players next year starting for or coming right off the bench for NBA franchises. So I'm curious to see what what will be done with Donovan Mitchell, because you look at a team like the Miami Heat, who are very aggressive under Pat Riley's tutelage at making moves on occasion. And to get a player like Mitchell into their fold, it would be interesting to see what they might be willing to give up. And of course, there could be a lot of other players in the game as well, if a player like Mitchell were to be actively shopped looking for a new home. LeBron James, they got swept, not surprisingly, by the OKC Thunder. They actually had 2 games that were very winnable in that series. LeBron played very well, particularly when you put the asterisks by his name, Brandon, that he's 41 years old. Nobody does that at 41, and he was outstanding. There were moments where he looked his age, particularly on the defensive side, later in the games, but he just didn't have a team around him. Even when they got Austin Reeves back for the series, that was good enough. They needed, of course, to have Luka Doncic on the court to have a shot at being competitive with the mighty Thunder. LeBron's future. Here are some of the compelling choices. I'll give you 3. A, he stays in LA. He's been there 8 years. His lifestyle, his way of his, I think, future pursuits are LA like. Like, he has fit into that realm very, very nicely. So, the A is LA. He stays there. B, he goes back to Cleveland. He's an Ohio boy. He is loyal to Ohio. He went back to Cleveland and won a championship with Cleveland when they defeated Golden State at that, and one of the rare 3-1 comebacks in NBA championship history. So LeBron goes back to Cleveland, rides into the sunset as a Cavalier in his home state that he's given so much to and has given so much to him. See, somewhere else, somebody else, Dallas, for instance. There's talk he goes and pairs up with Kyrie and Cooper in Dallas. Is that a possibility? Are there other franchises? Portland has been talked about, bandied about a bit. I even saw one article by the New York Times in their Athletic. There was a plea made by Minnesota. Let's find a way to make a deal. Let's get you playing along with Anthony Edwards, because Edwards and LeBron get along really well. And honestly, he would complement Ant, because Ant could play off him and be, I think, more effective compared to the players that he's got around him right now in terms of finding him and getting him the ball in scoring positions. What do you think, Brandon?
So it's funny because the options do kind of seem to be almost endless. When you're talking about someone like LeBron James, realistically, every single team would be interested in having him for, if no other reason, the marketability factor. And now, is LeBron James interested in all other 29 teams, or even sticking with the Lakers, all 30 teams? No, obviously not. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts, Paul. You mentioned the Mavericks, right? And they're clearly trending in the right direction with this addition of Cooper Flagg as the number 1 overall pick, even in the post-Luka era. If you're the Mavericks, even with the understanding that LeBron seemed comfortable to an extent, kind of not playing the main fiddle role with the Lakers this year, in complement to Luka Doncic, is there any worry about trying to overshadow this, your long-term plan of bringing in someone like LeBron to play alongside Cooper Flagg? Is that at all a worry, or do you say he can still help the team? We're not as worried about that element. We want to get back into the mix here, playoffs and beyond, as soon as possible.
It's a great question. And I think the answer is it could be all of those things that you just described. Because the one thing about LeBron James, Brandon, is he can fit in anywhere. Mm-hmm. He's that good.
He can justifiably play any position on the court and do it still effectively. And we really saw that on full display, particularly in these playoffs with Luka not able to go.
And the thought of Cooper Flagg being able to play off LeBron James, to be able to have shots created for him more easily, because that's one of the great qualities of LeBron James' game that I don't think is talked about enough. is what a fantastic passer he is.
Yeah.
And I've never been like an overly enthusiastic LeBron James fan. I must admit, he has certainly, I have warmed up to him a lot this year just simply because of the way he accepted his role, the way he went about his business, and how effective he was at his age. I have so much respect for how he takes care of his body, how he has extended and battled against Father Time successfully at a level we really have never seen before. Michael Jordan at age 40 when he was playing for Washington, he still averaged 20 points a game, but he wasn't the player LeBron is, I don't believe, at that stage of his career. So to your point, Dallas, I think it's kind of a square peg in a round hole. It's kind of a forced opportunity, it would be a forced move on the part of the Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
They really should go about their business not looking for a quick fix in getting LeBron for a year. And also from LeBron's standpoint, it's not like you go to the Mavericks in the Western Conference and feel like you got a real good shot
right.
at being good enough to compete against San Antonio and Oklahoma City. So I don't see that.
And so the only other one that really piqued my interest, and it's for pretty much exactly what you said, it remains out west. It seems unlikely. He said he's fit in perfectly into this LA lifestyle. It seems like that's where he's destined to be post-career wise, the movie side of things, the Hollywood, all that glitz and glam. Could you ever envision him just heading cross town and joining up with the Clippers?
Wouldn't that be weird?
it would be so
odd. It would be weird. It'd be kind of fun. The thought of LeBron and Kawhi playing together.
Yeah.
Kind of neat. But I think that also ties into another potential trade discussion that's going to take place in this offseason is Kawhi. Like, what's his future with the Clippers? And I mean, what's going to be the outcome of the investigation that has been so hush-hush through the entire year about his bizarre, weird sponsorship deal?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, anything's possible. I would think it would come down, in my mind, to the Lakers or the Cavs. Like, to me, both of those make sense. The Lakers have come out and said signing LeBron would be great, but it's not our priority. They know they have to build around Luka, then Austin. And they have to get better really everywhere on that team. They're just not very good. Marcus Smart's, he's good. He's okay. Not a championship. He's not a guy you'd look at and say, there's a championship guy. But he could play on a championship team, certainly. So I think the Lakers are going to have to look at what they have to spend, what they're able to acquire in order to fill the gaps in to build around Luka and Austin. There is that sentimental reality. If he goes back to Cleveland, that could be pretty cool. That could be a pretty cool exit strategy for LeBron to make his stops in cities all across the league that are going to pour out their appreciation to him for the great career that he's had. So that to me would be the one that might be interesting. What would have to be done to get LeBron to Cleveland? That remains to be seen. But I think, Brandon, right now, if I had to make a guess, I think that even LeBron would take a bit less to stay with the Laker organization for a lot of reasons that go beyond basketball.
Mm-hmm. And like the whole uprooting thing and realistically, we think this is probably it. One more year from the chance to announce it. We know that LeBron enjoys the pomp and circumstance to have a swan song and say, this is it, the farewell tour. It absolutely tracks that doing it back with the Cavaliers or just sticking with the Lakers seem the most likely options to fill out that kind of storyline. I said it with Kevin earlier this week. It would have been earlier this week after they were eliminated. I kind of had it as one of our in or out topics. I said, I fully believe LeBron James will be back next year, but I said it would not be with the Lakers just for the sake of maybe it is the idea of a reunion with the Cavaliers makes too much sense from a storyline perspective to wrap up obviously an all-time greats tenure in the NBA.
And I think there's another aspect to I think your point, which is a very good one. And that is LeBron's a storyline guy. I mean, he's got his son on the team, for God's sakes. and we know Bronny, no disrespect to the young man, at best is a G League player. And even that would not have happened if his dad wasn't LeBron James. I mean, he scored 4 points a game at USC before the poor young guy had heart problems, for goodness sakes. So I think, LeBron is a storyline guy, and that in and of itself, I mean, can you imagine the hero he would be if he goes home for his final year in the league? And the other thing he might do is he might just pack it in. He might just say that's it. I mean, he's a billionaire. Why not? So it'll be interesting to see, but it's one of the compelling offseason storylines, and it's one of many. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to go into our deep dive, and we're going to bring in Joey Slattery. And Joey, you're going to enjoy this. We're going to have a great conversation about the CEBL, Canadian Elite Basketball League, but we're going to talk about a whole lot more. Thanks so much for being with us today here on Hoop City with Paul Sir, Brandon Douglas, on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
Your favorite teams, your favorite sports. This spring, get all the action at Selly's Sports Bar and Lounge. Never a bad seat in the house. Plus, the perfect playoff menu with something for every sports fan, including daily food and drink features. From great goals to thrilling three-pointers to huge home runs. Spring brings the best to the big screens at Selly's Sports Bar and Lounge at all 3 Century Casino locations, Edmonton, St. Albert, and Century Mile.
Every day is game day at Century Casino.
Legacy Heating and Cooling jingle auditions, take one for Gene Principe. Hey, thanks for being on time.
I'm always punctual. Now, how about some cool beats while I drop the heat?
Ready when you are.
Tall legacy, tall legacy.
Nice.
Boom! I'm a musical genius.
Legacy's going to love this for AC season.
What's not to love with no interest and no Principe payments for 1 year?
Are you always like this?
Yep. Unlike Legacy, I never know when to cool it.
Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Real protection starts from the ground up. Timberland Pro Boondock Boots provide industrial-grade protection and legendary durability. Their new BOA series give you unmatched fit and performance coupled with all-day anti-fatigue comfort. Find the largest selection of Timberland Boondock BOAs at all 3 of our Edmonton job site workwear locations and online at jobsiteworkwear.ca.
Job site workwear, tough for tough jobs.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Confidence in motion. Visit Subaru.ca.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free Radio Player app and listen wherever you go.
This is Hoop City on Sports 1440.
Now, back to your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back. Temptations. I Can't Get Next to You. That probably is my favorite Temptations song. That's got it all. And man, oh man, when they were in their prime and they were doing their dance to that, their choreographed dance moves, it was the best. Joey Slattery, that was way before your time, however.
Just a little before my time, Paul.
A lot before your time. Welcome, Joey, to the to Hoop City Deep Dive. I'm so pleased that you're going to be with us. And somebody came up to me and said, you have Joey Slattery on, like he's from Winnipeg. What are you doing? And I said, you wait. You will eat those words. This is one of my favorite people who knows the game inside and out, and I'm just so excited to have you here. Thanks so much for making time, because I know it's a busy time. You're probably down at the shoot-around of the Sea Bears right now.
I just got back for this because I wasn't going to miss it for the world, and I appreciate you having me on. And let's be fair, I do have some Edmonton roots, right? I lived there for a little bit. I was there for the inception of the Edmonton Stingers. And that's what got me, into the CEBL in the first place. So, I'm really excited to be on the show. It's a busy day. It's an exciting day in Winnipeg for sure, but an exciting year for Canadian basketball, if I'm being totally honest. We're just on the upward trajectory, from our national team to our pro league. Things are looking really good right now. There's a lot of excitement.
Well, a lot of excitement. And before we go into the specifics, I had this a little further down in my list of topics to talk about, Joey. Let's talk about realistically one of the exciting announcements, although we have really no idea what this means. But I think it bears out the point you make about Canadian basketball being at an inflection point, if you will. But that Mark Cuban is now a part owner of a CEBL franchise in Brampton. Like, I saw that, and I think a lot of people thought, oh, that's got to be AI. There's no way Mark Cuban's going to be involved in the CEBL. But it's true.
I think we were all like that a little bit, Paul. I'll be totally honest. I mean, I like to think I'm pretty connected with the league. I didn't know anything about this. It was a shock to me, right? As it was a shock to everybody. Twofold on this. It's obviously very exciting. I've talked to a few people in the league, front office people, and there's clearly an excitement. It's not bad to have Mark Cuban involved with your league. I don't know how the payoff goes in terms of himself, what he'll do for attendance in Brampton or things like that. But I think the biggest thing with him joining the league was the interview that he did with CBC right upon the announcement, where he talked about how the value and the undervalue of Canadian basketball. And, I know that he's, a very charismatic guy, and obviously he has a part of him that needs to sell this as well. But I think that's genuine, right? You can't put aside the fact that he was very involved with the Dallas Mavericks as an owner. He understands basketball. He understands where the players were coming from. I mean, his teams were headlined, the best of his teams were headlined by Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki, right? He's very aware of international basketball. And I think where that comes in handy is just the validation of everything is on the right path here. And there's an opportunity for investors, the likes of Mark Cuban, the Shark Tank guy, right? A guy who's owned an NBA team. He doesn't need to own another basketball team. He wants to own another basketball team. So I think it bodes well for the league. And I think it bodes well for Brampton, because now you've got a little bit more, dollar punch behind your product, which I'm just going to say right off the top, Brampton's done a wonderful job this offseason of turning things around. They had their season opener yesterday. There was an energy in that building I could feel on TV that I've never felt before.
Well, and I think Brampton has suffered from really not great crowds historically. And so
it's been a struggle.
Yeah, it's been a struggle. And I mean, it's always interesting when you deal with minor league basketball, especially when you're in a major market like Toronto, because you have so many other things to do in a variety of sports, not just basketball. But when you're the home of the Raptors, the 905s, now you got the WNBA there, and now the CEBL is trying to find its place in the ecosystem there. This definitely jumps it up to the forefront and brings an attention to the league that it really hasn't had before. There was, and you have to pardon me, I don't know the young man's name, but the rapper that was involved with Scarborough for a while, and
J. Cole,
yeah. And I remember Scarborough comes to Edmonton. Oh, he's going to be here. Doesn't show up. Place is filled with young kids that didn't know a basketball from a pumpkin, but they were there because they wanted to see this guy. You always have that danger in it, but I don't think Mark Cuban, he's not that kind of business guy, because to your point, Joey, he really revolutionized the NBA in how it treated its players, because he was the first guy to really give the players what I would call luxurious locker rooms, fly them first class or chartered on flights. Like, he did things that went way above and beyond what a lot of NBA franchises were prepared to do for their players. So he's always been at the forefront and always thought outside of the box. And that's one of the reasons he has all those zeros behind his name in his checking account.
I will take you a step further on that. Even before the basketball revolution, let's not forget how he made his money in digital, right? In the .com era with the whole blow up. He cashed out at the right time. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's revolutionized things beyond even basketball. And that's where I think it's kind of a perfect partnership with where he is in Brampton right now, because this is a league that is really improved its accessibility, right? It was on TSN for a number of years, which was great for the league, but there's a paywall, right? It was hard to find if you didn't have the TSN Plus app or if you didn't have TSN cable. Now it's with CBC. Everything is free, right? So you're on YouTube, you're on CBC Gem, you're on CBC TV, and there's only 6 national games this year, but I think that's large in part due to the World Cup. Don't quote me on that, but there is the break between games kind of lines up perfectly with World Cup games and things like that. So I think they're putting a lot of resources as the public broadcaster there, but this is a guy that knows how to marry the two, right? I think if the league and the team is going in this with an open mind, like, let's listen to this guy. His whole life is on making the right bet, So there's something here that's working for him that's going to bring value to him. He's not here from the goodness of his heart, I don't think. Like, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I'm sure he's not here just like, I'm going to go support the good old Brampton Badgers. Like, I don't think that's it, right? There's a return in this for him too that he's looking for, which means there's confidence behind it. But it's a very weird time, Paul. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but there's been a lot of change in the CEBL. That last time on the show, we were talking about Mike Morreale being gone and the new leadership. There's a lot of pressure on the league too right now because of this. You've got the platform, you've got the accessibility. Now, what are we doing with it, right? So having a guy like Mark Cuban in here, I think, is huge. But so far, it's been a quick turnaround from the old leadership switch over to where we are now. But I have to admit, there's an excitement that, it's palpable. I think there was a little bit of questions, maybe concerns for some people of what was happening this year. But now that everything's kind of in motion, the vibes are high, as the kids would say, Paul.
Well, and I think, bringing Mark Cuban coming into the league is kind of like throwing gasoline on the fire. I mean, that's going to create a lot of excitement and a lot of momentum out of the gate. But I agree with you. Now that it's back, now that it's real, because I would say it was a pretty quiet offseason with all the changes that were taking place at the head office. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later. I wouldn't say the CEBL's strength has necessarily been the way it has marketed its league. Particularly in this offseason. That's me speaking. But we'll talk about that a bit later. Let's talk about the exciting part. First of all, let's start with the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Now, I think it's fair to say, without blowing smoke at all, Joey, in your direction or in the direction of Winnipeg, it is the model franchise, in my opinion, in the CEBL. You are able to galvanize your fans in the community so that you get many thousands coming out to your games. They've really become Sea Bear fans quickly and remained loyal. Every year you put, I think, some pretty dynamic and exciting talent on the court. And, the signing of Xavier Moon, who I know is still a few weeks out from being here because of his commitments and still playing over in Russia. But that was a major coup because everybody assumed, myself included, it was kind of a fait accompli that he was going to be back in Edmonton if he came back. So that was a major signing. But talk about the Winnipeg organization and the Winnipeg community's embrace of the Winnipeg Sea Bears.
Well, I think first you have to give credit to David Asper on taking the big swing, right? This is a man who has, a very successful track record as a businessman, really helped kind of redirect the Blue Bombers into what they become, right? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was the chairman of the Blue Bombers board for a long time. This guy understands the value of business and entertainment. And I think with the Sea Bears, as the story goes, Filipino population here is very large and, big basketball fans and understanding the market, right? Like where a lot of his diehard fans were coming from, which would be like the north end of the city. So when he was testing different venues, he drove from the neighborhoods that most of his perceived fan base would be coming from. And he took the big swing on Canada Life Center, which is where the Winnipeg Jets play. It's a major league arena. It's, they're not getting it for free. Put it that way, right? They signed a new 3-year lease in the offseason. So they're going to be there for at least 3 years. But it is too big for the CEBL. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. This is, they do really well, but I don't think that was the expectation going in. It was more of the hope. And the hope has been answered. Now the team has been here for 3 years, right? So now you can feel the sense with the team too, is they're not taking it for granted. That's what I get through my dealings with the team. When I'm talking to people that, in the front office, that now it's, for a while it was the event, it was the new kid on the block, so to speak. But Winnipeg, or the Sea Bears rather, have become part of the sports culture fabric of Winnipeg, right? Like if I'm looking at the teams, it probably goes at this point, Bombers number 1, Jets number 2, very close. And then probably the Sea Bears and then the Gold Eyes, our baseball team, right? And all of those teams get great support. So that's not to put any water on anybody else's fire, but it is a team that is really connected with fans for whatever reason. For a lot of newcomers, right? People that are new to Winnipeg or first generation Winnipeggers who didn't have that legacy and tradition of growing up with the Jets and the Bombers. This is their team. right? Like this is a team now that's been to come to them. Well, they're there from day one, and that's been a thing. The day one fans, they've always been treating them as something special. And no, they put a lot of resources into it. If you go to a game in Winnipeg, it feels like the NBA. They've got the toys, they use the toys. You ask any player, you ask any coach. I agree with you. I don't think it's blowing smoke. It's always the topic of conversation when a visiting team comes in here. It's usually led by, how excited are you to play here today? Very excited. And on the flip side, it doesn't make it any easier for the Sea Bears because everybody wants to have their best game in Winnipeg. They want to have it under the bright lights with the big TV cameras, right? It's a place that everybody circles on their calendar every year. But it is very much a cultural thing here in Winnipeg. You see people wearing Sea Bears gear in the winter when they're not playing. You see people wearing jerseys. You see sweaters. It is part, like as I said, is that sports culture fabric that you have it in your collection with your Jet stuff and your Blue Bomber stuff and your Gold Eye stuff. And it's been really well received. But now I'm going to be a little bit of a wet towel here.
Wet towel. Here comes Joey, the wet towel.
They haven't won a playoff game yet, right? Last year, it kind of hit a boiling point going into championship weekend. They started losing at home, which was weird. They weren't used to that. They had a very successful home record. Last year, we saw the other teams performing better here at Canada Life Center. You saw the fire Mike Taylor signs, who was the head coach, who eventually did get let go in the offseason. So fans now want wins. And it's, I think the team feels that a little bit. Again, today, the long weekend, so it's a little bit weird for an opening game. But yeah, I think they're already over 7, inching towards 8,000 tickets sold, and they'll probably get a lot of walk-in traffic. It's a cold day in Winnipeg here today. I don't know if many people are hitting the cabins, or cottages, whatever. I know every region calls it something different, but I think they're off to a good step. But Teddy Allen being back, and I know we're going to get into that, is the big draw right now. That's when all the talk when he was re-signed, all has been forgotten. He is a totally different guy, and people, the roof is going to go off the place tonight when they introduce number 8.
To have someone come back like Teddy, who's, a bit of a lightning rod because of the type of player and personality that he's been, though, he still has endeared himself to Winnipeg. And the fact that you would get back what you think is a much more mature version of somebody who is capable of being one of the very, very best in the league, night in and night out. And if he has settled into that, if he's maturing into it, the rest of the league needs to look out. And boy, do they ever need to look out when he pairs up with Xavier when he gets into town as well. I think you made some great points, though, and this is why I consider Winnipeg to be the gold standard of the way they've ingratiated themselves and woven themselves into the fabric of the community. But I also I want to get into the importance of winning in the CEBL. Because I'm like you. I'm now looking at it as a league that now we've got history. So we can't, I don't think the communities, the cities are going to be as happy anymore just having a team and just being thrilled that, boy, we got professional basketball in Canada. That is great. But the league under the funding of and the vision of Richard Petko, who wrote the checks for a lot of years, and the high energy work led by Mike Moriali and, some of his team like Josh Nestor and some of the other folks at the head office. But Mike was cloned. It seemed like he was in every city, every game because of the way he hustled around the league. But now people are at the point now where their team is their team. And now you start heaping expectations on it. Like you said, Winnipeg's at the point now, well, this is great, folks. Are we going to win?
And you hit the nail on the head. And I know I've said this before and I won't stick too much on it, but the league goes a lot to guys like Mike Morielli and Richard Petko who got this off. And it's in a good state to this new leadership group that now is taking it into a new direction, right? They're trying to make this global. They're trying to make it more accessible. The basketball has been set up, but it is important now, right? Because it's becoming, I've always said the CEBL's potential is to be what the CFL is to football. Right. The way the game has grown, you look at the statistics across the board, and I know it's the same in Edmonton. The growth of basketball has been astronomical in the last 10, 15 years, even going back 20 years, right? When the Raptors start coming about, they start getting better. Vince Carter, they win a championship. And a lot of people, it's just more accessible to play, right? Hockey's expensive. And, even soccer's become expensive. And I think for a long time, and we're noticing this now, like, there's excitement because of the World Cup, but it doesn't seem to have the same, I don't know if it's coolness or what, but there's something about basketball to these new fans that sticks with them, that they can just go grab a ball, hit a park, and go play. But when it comes to winning now, like, there's owners in the league. So those guys were writing the checks for a long time. And this is where I think the change comes about, is now these owners have to ensure that their investment in these teams, in these cities, are seeing a return. So now the winning does become important, because you're not just the Winnipeg Sea Bears run by the, CEBL or their subsidiary of the CEBL, or the, Edmonton team that's all owned by the league. No, now you've got owners that say, hey, like, we're paying the checks. We're hiring these players. We're hiring these coaches. We need butts in seats. We need them buying concessions. We need them buying merch. And if you're not winning, it's not working, right? I mean, you look at Saskatchewan. They've struggled. They are the last team to be purchased in the CEBL. Ottawa and Saskatchewan were purchased over the offseason. So now it's a league full of owners. But now it's a sense of, with the new playoff format, there's incentive to win. Because now if you can get that top seed, you get a home playoff game. That's extra gate. You look at a place like Winnipeg, they get to the finals, Paul, right? And if they get that home advantage, if they finish top in the league, if that were the case, speaking totally hypothetically here, they would have possibly two home games of 15,000 people. Think that's motivation enough for an owner to, put a little investment and get their players to go? Owners are talking to teams. Don't kid yourself. Like, they're going and giving pep talks and having the teams over to make sure that they understand that, hey, this isn't just for fun. I know you're here trying to advance your careers, but while you're doing this, you're going to do well for me. I'm giving you the opportunity. Now I need to see you pay me back in terms of effort and wins.
I think you hit on a key element, and I think it's a correct element for a healthy league going forward, is it has to matter. It can't just be a convenient stopover in between playing overseas. It has to,
which is why the Canadian rule is so important.
Pardon me, Joey?
Which is why the Canadian rule is so important. So
Absolutely.
So to listeners that don't know, there's a Canadian rule, kind of like the CFL. There needs to be 2 Canadians on the floor at all time, and you can only have 5 imports dressed, 6 altogether. So there's a limit on how many people outside of Canada you can have. And sorry to cut you off, Paul. I think you're hitting it on the head, and I want to say it before I forget. That is important, because these Canadian guys that play U Sports or go to the NCAA aren't ready for the NBA yet. They can come back, play at home, and it means something. They're playing for their hometowns, or they're playing against their hometowns. David Walker, for instance, who plays on Winnipeg, is from Scarborough. The guy's going to be foaming at the mouth to play Scarborough. He wants to beat his hometown. Like, hey, I'm going here. I want to play with the best. I'm putting my city on the map by beating my city. Those are the types of attitudes that are going to carry this league. So you bring a bunch of G Leaguers in, because I know some people say, well, is it really the best of the best? I'm telling you it is. That's why Mark Cuban is here, because the Canadians, after the Americans, produce the most NBA players. The talent is sky high. This league gets substantially better every year from a talent perspective. So 100% these guys are important, and they are the ones that are going to carry that importance, like you say, where it matters, because there's a bunch of guys from Winnipeg on Winnipeg. They want to win in Winnipeg. It's not just a thing. And they tell the players that it's a privilege to play here. And you're 100% right. There needs to be a care about it. And I think it's there for the most players, and the guys coming in are learning it on the fly.
Couldn't agree with you more. Joey, we're going to have to take a break right now. Stick with us. We're going to come back with our second half of our deep dive conversation. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir on the deep dive with Joey Slattery. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Own and run a small business? Innovative Benefits provides private health service plan setup, as well as administration services for businesses like yours. But the best part is, Innovative Benefits offers benefit plans that cost less than the industry average, 20 to 40% less. And they provide 100% coverage with no insurance company rules, administration, or interference. So if you have medical, dental, or healthcare expenses, their plans will always increase your cash flow. Visit innovativebenefits.ca for more.
All the protection you want, none of the weight. Introducing Timberland Pro's Boondock Ultra Light Work Boots, the lightest Boondock yet, with the Timberland durability you expect. Conquer long shifts, move faster, and work safer with all-day comfort in a lightweight package. Find your Boondock Ultralights now at all 3 of our Edmonton job site workwear locations and online at jobsiteworkwear.ca.
Job site workwear, tough different jobs.
My, this sushi is just exquisite.
And I am obsessed with these crab legs.
You must have spent the whole day in the kitchen preparing this feast for us.
Or
Did I?
Entertain with unbelievable ease. The secret is Catch of the Week.
So you're telling me you were able to buy a ready-to-serve platter that is this fresh?
Catch of the Week, Edmonton's best seafood. Just off the Henday and Capilano, only 5 minutes from Sherwood Park. Details and directions online at catchoftheweekedmonton.com.
Sleep is for the off-season. What off-season? Sports 1440 is live, loud, and locked 24/7. Oilers, Elks, Riverhawks, Stingers, Oil Kings. We've got your fix. Edmonton's home for sports is Sports 1440. Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru, a world-class leader in environmental performance. Visit Subaru.ca. This is Hoop City on Sports 1440.
Now, back to your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back to Hoop City on the Deep Dive. Paul Sir here along with Brandon, and we're happy to welcome in Joey Slattery. Joey, let's go back to the CEBL for just a second. There was opening game for the league, was a CBC broadcast game last Saturday here in Edmonton at the Expo Center. Winnipeg's down 7 in target time. And by down 7, I mean the target time, the way it works, you have to score, I believe it's 9 points. First one to score 9. Is it 9 or 7?
So it's the first, yeah. So basically they take after the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter, the first whistle, time stops. Whatever the leading score is, they add 9. So that becomes the target score.
Okay. So Winnipeg had to come back. They came back and won. A couple of free throws by a Winnipeg University player. Exciting comeback and win. Disappointing, of course, for the Edmonton Stingers, but an exciting way to start, for the league to start off. Before we go back to the league, I have to tell you, Joey, and you talk about a wet blanket. This is one big wet blanket here for me. I hate target time. I loathe it.
Really?
I loathe it.
Really? Why is that?
Well, let's do our counterpoint here. Okay. I'm going to come at you from old school guy, curmudgeonly old guy. But there's a reason why 8 years into this, no other major league in the world has picked it up. That's number one. I know they have it, I believe, in the 3-on-3 league down in the States for the women during the summer. But the other thing is, if you've got something that 8 years into it, you have to explain every game to everybody watching. To me, that's a problem. So I would just rather play the FIBA game myself. I prefer that. If it's an overtime, I know it started originally because TSN, wanted to have it be reliable for broadcast and blah, blah, blah. Again, I just loathe it. I think it's an irritation more than it is a basketball. It's just not something I personally enjoy. Now, having said that, I'm a wet blanket on this. It's an identifying factor for the league. And I think similar to the size of the football in the CFL, it'd be hard to change it. It'd be hard to go to 4 downs in the CFL. I think they should, personally, but I don't think they ever will because it's part of their identity. And I think
100%.
CEBL, it's part of their identity.
So here's where I'll counter that. So there's the TBT League, the basketball tournament, which is a huge viral thing every year. They go by the target score. You're right, though, the women's 3x3. NBA has tried this with great success at the All-Star game, where players loved it. And that was a few years ago now, but it was one of the more competitive NBA All-Star games that we've seen. And I've heard that it's something that they've been toying with overtime. So instead of having the clock run out, you just say, okay, no clock in overtime, just first to that target score. I like that. I don't think the NBA is ever going to do this, right? Like you said, every league has its culture. And as you've seen with the CFL, when you mess with it even a little bit, it can create a firestorm that you don't need to bring on unless you absolutely need to. I don't think anybody's begging for it, but I do think in Canada is what makes it sticks out. From a development standpoint, Paul, I'm a believer that this should be implemented kind of like Canadian football rules right across our scholastic system, from high school, even in the minors, or at least with some major tournaments, which some people have done or some tournaments have done, because now you have to learn how to be clutch. right? Like you have to go through that moment that a game isn't going to end because you can dribble out the ball. I think it gives much better development opportunities for young kids and people growing up that you have to compete until the very end, right? And you're getting those shots. So if you're getting the quote garbage time, that doesn't exist in the CEBL. Every time you step on the floor is a chance to prove yourself. And if you're going to be that true development league to the NBA, every time you go out there, you have to play defense and you have to score when the pressure's on. So you can have, like you say, that 7-point lead, that 9-point lead, that 16-point lead. If you don't score that 9 before the other team gets to that target, that's a hard thing to bear, right? And you feel that pressure. So I think it goes a long way in terms of development and learning how to play the game in those high pressure situations. So people that might have, went under the radar a little bit because they never found themselves in those situations in high school or in college or whatever the case may be, now might find themselves like a Mason Krause, for instance, who was on the floor at target time, had his heroic moment for his hometown team. He's a University of Manitoba legend out here, but now he's on the national stage and he had that opportunity to be there because they couldn't give up and he was playing well. But now you find yourself in a scenario where I would have been just dribbling out the ball, or I would have been playing garbage time while Edmonton was dribbling out the ball, but they were able to stage that comeback and put themselves on the map. But I think there's a lot of upside to target score, but I do understand the argument for people of the traditional game. And I know no one likes it ending on a foul shot, but again, to have to hit a foul shot or two to win a game creates a lot of pressure, a lot of drama, right? And go ahead.
I was just going to say, Joey, you make a lot of good points. And here's something I will identify as a place where target time would be, I think, an effective tool. And it ties into your idea on developmental basketball. And that should be that target time is implemented in the equivalent of AAU tournaments for youth. Okay. That would solve a lot of problems when you get into scheduling, when you've got 1 million teams playing 1 million games in a gym, and now you get an overtime and everything gets bogged down and backed up. Really and truly, the target time makes sense in high volume environments to me. Like that,
and the scores too can't get too out of whack, right? Like you have to. There is a cap at some point, and you can't get blamed for running up a score because you still have to end the game with the 9 points, right? So it takes away that aspect too.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. If you're much better, you can be up 100-9 and then just have to get to 109. The other
that's what I mean. Yeah. But it's like, if there's teams that'll go off and then, well, you should have held back. Like it takes away that excuse. You can't hold back because you have to end the game. If you don't score, it's not over is the argument I'm making. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And it's only a negative if you think it's a negative. I think it personally, I prefer watching a game play itself out in the traditional way over the target time at the professional level.
But you like the fouling?
Pardon?
Because that's one thing that comes away from target time, right? Is like, when they're hacking for fouls, trying to get the possessions back where it can, from a casual fan, one of the big arguments with basketball is the last 2 minutes can take 15 minutes, right? Because you're going back and forth trying to get possession.
I don't think that exists so really in FIBA because of the limitations on timeouts. NBA, by all means, NCAA, absolutely, because they leave the timeouts you can always call a timeout in the middle of a play. You can, you've got 1 million
call it on the floor
to work with, but FIBA takes that away. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's just one observation I would have. Like I said, I'll just throw that up as the curmudgeonly opinion on it.
I think there's a few coaches that would agree with you.
I think so. I think so. I just think it's a better brand of basketball personally. And
that's fair.
Standing there waiting to see if a guy makes a couple free throws to end the game. It's like a dull thud when they win the game on a free throw for me.
That's true. I just remember the game where Alex Campbell scored his 1,000th point to be the first Canadian to do so. It was off 2 missed foul shots from was it Justin Jackson, who ended up playing in the NBA, but he had 2 chances to ice the game, missed both foul shots, and Winnipeg went the other way. And that was the loudest I've ever heard a stadium. So maybe that's my bias, is I remember that game where it was like crazy when you missed it.
Oh, you Winnipeggers, your loyalty is admirable. I do appreciate that. I'm talking with Joey Slattery here on Hoop City on the Deep Dive with Paul Scher. Let's go back to the league for a second. Let's talk about some of the teams. One of the things I think that the league does struggle with is, or has a big challenge with, I don't want to say struggle with, but one of the big challenges is how do you pump up and promote the heroes of, if you will, and I'll put that in quotation mark, or the stars rather, that's a better term, coming into your community for that summer. You have Teddy Allen, who is an established star in Winnipeg. He has a rep. We had Xavier Moon, and some other players as well. But those are two that just jump out at you. But one of the things is, how do you market your stars? I guess what I'd like to do is, if you had to look across the league right now, Joey, because you do a great job of evaluating the CEBL, who has some of the star power of the signees outside of somebody named Xavier Moon, outside of Sean East, who's in Brampton? Who are some of the other names and players that you see as being players that people should really pay attention to?
Well, Vancouver, and it's still not signed, but I know there's still interest, and they're still going after Mitch Creek, who is a former NBA player, absolute star out of Australia. Tyrese Samuels, a Canadian who won the most outstanding Canadian last year in his first year in the CEBL. He'll be a front runner for the MVP. But you're right, like it is a little bit tough, and it really depends on who you ask too, Paul. Because you look at the Teddy Allen thing. Well, he had his banner up at Canada Life Center beside Connor Hellebuck, right? And many would make the argument that might have got to his head from year 1 to year 2, which led to some of the issues that led to the breakup in the first place, right? And I don't know if teams in the CBA are looking at that as like, maybe we don't do that, right? Because we got to make sure that everybody's in check and we got a team here. And different teams handle it differently too, right? Like I know Calgary and I'm sure Saskatoon, because there's the same ownership, which is another conversation. But they don't really market their stars. They've been notorious up until this year, really, of bringing in a whole new slot of players. They had very few returnees from coaches, from players, because they're selling the event. They're selling the team, right? So I think it does come down to what your ownership group sees as the opportunity. Do we own a basketball team, or do we own an event, right? That we're trying to sell, a live event, week over week and things like that, in social media and stuff like that. But there are marketable stars. And I think the thing is too, with the CBL, we're going to start noticing more and more as time goes on. We might not know their stars until they're gone, right? There's going to be guys coming in here that are going to be, they're going to make their name here like a Teddy Allen. They're going to sign a 10-day Tevian Jones, not Tevian Jones, sorry. Name's blanking me. Trey Scott played on Winnipeg last year. He just signed with Calgary. That guy was with the Long Island Nets, signed a 10-day contract and became a starter for the Brooklyn Nets. All within 9-10 months, right? And he's back in the CBL. So if I'm Calgary, I'm marketing the heck out of that guy. Like he's an NBA guy that actually played in Toronto against the Raptors. So Canadian basketball fans will know the name because they just watched him before the season ended, right? So I think there's a way to market it, but the key to marketing is your local guys. Identifying the guys who are going to stay there, who have ties to the universities, even marketing the coaches to some degree, kind of like college. If you have a coach that's staying here full time, maybe that's the name that sticks here because they're more accessible. They can do the camps and things like that. But more than marketing the stars, I think you just have to market the team to the community, right? Establish yourselves as the pros. Get the players out, get the coaches out, working with the kids, working with the local teams, whether it's club or high school or university, and build it that way where you're marketing the opportunity to play professionally in Canada. I think the Stars are going to market themselves within 5 to 10 years of this league if it continues as is. I think we're going to see the youth sports coverage is getting better, especially in Ontario. And Western Canada has always been good at supporting, at least compared to other parts of Canada, at supporting university basketball in particular. But the coverage has gotten better with a younger audience, right? Social media, I think, is going to be a huge blessing for youth sports moving forward. So there's already names being made because kids are starting to care about university sports. They naturally go into the CEBL through the draft and the development. So I think what we're going to start seeing, like a Simon Hildebrandt in Winnipeg, might not be a familiar name in Edmonton. In Winnipeg, he's a household name because he played at the University of Manitoba. He came in as a development player. He played well with the Winnipeg Sea Bears, the local team, went off to the NCAA, had his March Madness fun. Now he's back, and people couldn't be more excited about it. He is a star here. He will be marketed forever until he does not want to play or cannot play in the CBL anymore. So I think that's the key, is really kind of trying to elevate youth sports. If I'm the CBL, I'm trying to elevate the youth sports and even the CCAA as best I can in the off season. Try to get those players out. So then when you have your signing day, which used to be a draft, the names are already familiar. I think there's, Persevere's an account, a social media account that does great work. There's a few scattered around. I don't want to name them because there's too many and I'll forget some. But I think the younger audience, younger than you and I, Paul, that are going to carry this next, because there's a real desire for Canadian right now, and consuming Canadian. So if you have the top players outside of the U.S. playing here, being developed here, and playing some of their pro here at the very least, that's going to do wonders.
I agree. And I think you summarized it very, very well. And I think you named some of the keys. I'm going to throw something at you again as a bit of a consideration. You bring in a local coach in Winnipeg who's sticking around. We have one locally here. What if they don't succeed? Now, what we talk about the pressure is on for wins. One of the difficulties or one of the challenges is if you keep local talent here and they're attached into the community, and they don't meet expectations, that becomes a little bit more awkward when you have to make decisions. Now, having said that, this is after all a business. This is after all a professional league. Stuff happens, and it may happen at some point. But there's also, that has to be clearly defined by the ownership about what their expectations are out of their program in terms of not just how they connect to the community, but how they perform on the court.
And I wish I had the quote, but when they announced they were moving from Mike Taylor and making their coaching search, David Asper, the owner, said something is we need the prairie grit and dirt in the fingertips and the, whatever heartland heart or some great poetic thing about the prairies and what they wanted to reflect their team. But that's what it is. It's a reflection of the team, right? And you look at Winnipeg's coaching staff, it's all U Sports guys and CCAA guys. Two of them are from Brandon, Mike Rainbow, the head coach, and Jeremy Walinga, one of the assistants who coaches in Fort McMurray, actually at Keano College in the winter season. But you're 100% right. But put it this way. If it were the Edmonton Oilers and an Edmontonian was a head coach and you didn't make the playoffs, if Chris Knobloch was an Edmontonian, and maybe that's not a good example because I know there's a little bit of issues there with some liking it, some don't. But let's just say they were, tanked.
Paul Coffey. Let's see. Paul Coffey's the head coach.
There
great
you go, right?
Oiler. Yeah.
So he's in the city. He's from the city, but you're still not bigger than the team, right? And I think that going in. I think Mike Rainbow knows that if this doesn't work out, it might not. I think that's probably why he didn't leave the University of Winnipeg. He's still the head coach there. So it's 100% something to think about. But I think that's more on the coach accepting the job. Are you willing to live with the lack of success and how that's going to affect your life in the city moving forward? These are all competitors. It is pro sports, right? And I think everybody knows once you get to the pro realm, it is a little bit more cutthroat. It's not as cushy as a U Sports job in the sense that, it's easier to lose your job based on success and lack of success. But I think that that going in, and I would at least hope I'm not privy to those conversations, but I would hope that is something that's discussed and put forward from an ownership group so that there's no surprises when it's all said and done. It happened with Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor knew at that third year that they were likely going to go another way. He was hoping they would change their mind, but they didn't, right? I think that decision was made even before the season started last year, that Mike Taylor was probably on his last legs in Winnipeg because he did what he had to do. There was a mandate for him. He hit it out of the park. One of the best coaches you could have from a community standpoint in terms of selling the product. But now they need some local identification through Mike Rainbow, a well-respected coach across the country. And a lot of people know him here. They're rooting for him. They want him to succeed. Don't get me wrong. But 100%, you give him 2 years down the road and they've got 7 wins combined, you will hear the boo birds and you will see the signs in Winnipeg for sure.
Interesting. It's an interesting time and it's a transformative time in the league, like you talked about so well, Joey. Is the new management, which is really, I think, still getting its legs, still figuring out what it is supposed to be. The league now has evolved into where you've got some new ownership. You mentioned before, Saskatchewan's team is owned by the Calgary Group, so you've got dual ownership there. That's controversy. So I'm going to give you a buy or sell question. The name Mamba, buy or sell?
Sell.
Terrible name.
Yeah, I it's past that for sure. I was seeing them out there today, and the funny thing is, I'm at their shoot around, and their shoot around stuff is the Rattlers colors. So I was kind of laughing to myself, like, okay, we're kind of caught between two worlds here. Right. I think with the Mamba, if I'm being totally honest, I don't know if it's as much that I'm against the name Mamba. It's just that there's no admission that it has anything to do with Kobe. Like no one ever said the word Mamba until he had the Black Mamba mentality and marketed it to, the nth degree.
Totally
But
agree.
it's just this unwillingness to just admit, like, it's our little way of acknowledging Kobe Bryant. It's called Mamba for a reason, not Mambas. I'm pretty sure that was the name of Kobe's, youth team that he had with his daughter. But anyway, it's, it is what it is. I really like the Rattlers in terms of the name. I like the branding. It was like what's appropriate, because it was a snake that was actually in Saskatchewan, a rattlesnake that's very unique in this country.
Yep.
A mamba, I mean, spin it every way you want, but it's just creating more controversy, I think, than you need. But I also know that Jason Ribeiro is good at drawing attention. And, I got to give him credit there. We've talked a lot about the Saskatoon Mamba this offseason, whether it was positive or negative. But at the end of the day, Saskatoon's back on the map. People are watching and people are commenting. They're getting the engagement that they want out of it. And I'll tell you what, Paul, if you win, winning forgives everything. So you tried something new. You've gone in there. If the Mamba win the next 4 championships, guess who's going to love the Mamba? Province of Saskatchewan. And that's all that really matters to them. But you put a little pressure to win now, because if you want to keep that branding and you want to see some success, you have to make it something that attaches to your audience, to your fans, and that they connect with. And if you win a few games and have an exciting season and have some, like you were saying earlier, some stars that are tied to the Mamba and players that come back, because Saskatchewan has struggled at that forever, at bringing players back. Now it's a new ownership. And, I don't like the name. I know there are probably few people that do like it, but that is their decision. They're marketing it. They have a plan. We'll see how it goes out. But I would 100%. I wasn't a fan of the announcement when it came out.
What I'd like to end our conversation on as well, though, is that all the positives that the CEBL brings to Canadian basketball, it fills a gap that needed filling. And tip my hat to the visionaries who put their money where their mouth was, and they made this league possible. And now they've transitioned into an individual ownership league. And you have owners like the Aspers that are making such a difference. And good on Winnipeg for what you have built there. You really are the beacon in the league. I mean, Edmonton's got a real nice franchise here too. We've got a good thing going in this city. A lot of the other cities are doing really, really good things, but you have to have somebody on the mountaintop. And to this point, that certainly is Winnipeg. And Joey, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope we can do this again real soon. Tell people how they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. At Joey Slattery TV is my Instagram. That's where I do all of my game day reports and coverage of the CBL and the Sea Bears. I also have the Target Score podcast and their local markets. So we've got a show in Winnipeg, in Brampton, and in Vancouver, and we'll be growing. So I don't know if Sports 1440 wants to add a little Target Score flavor to them. I know you don't like Target Score, Paul, but no, the Target Score podcast.
Great idea.
What's that?
The best use of Target Score that I've heard so far. It's the name for a show.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, Joey Slattery, you do a fantastic job. It's been great talking with you. I'm glad we could shine the spotlight on the CEBL together. Thanks so much. All the best, and we'll be in touch soon.
You bet. Anytime, Paul. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate you.
Joey Slattery joining me here on the Deep Dive, and we will be back after these messages as we bring the show home.
I'm Dr. Vance Elliott. The goal of every one of the thousands of hair restoration procedures I've performed is a full, natural-looking head of hair. I work directly with my patients for the consultation, the procedure, and the follow-up, so we can achieve the best results possible. When people see what we accomplish, I don't want them to think, "Wow, great hair transplant." I want them to think,
"Wow, great hair."
Go to drvanceelliott.com and contact us today.
Your favorite teams, your favorite sports. This spring, get all the action at Selly's Sports Bar and Lounge. Never a bad seat in the house. Plus, the perfect playoff menu with something for every sports fan, including daily food and drink features. From great goals to thrilling three-pointers to huge home runs. Spring brings the best to the big screens at Selly's Sports Bar and Lounge at all 3 Century Casino locations, Edmonton, St. Albert, and Century Mile.
Every day is game day at Century Casino.
Real protection starts from the ground up. Timberland Pro Boondock Boots provide industrial-grade protection and legendary durability. Their new BOA series give you unmatched fit and performance coupled with all-day anti-fatigue comfort. Find the largest selection of Timberland Boondock BOAs at all 3 of our Edmonton job site workwear locations and online at jobsiteworkwear.ca.
Job site workwear, tough gear for tough jobs.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440, powered by Subaru. Welcome to Uncommon. Visit Subaru.ca.
Your cabin by the lake is your peaceful retreat, a home away from the terrors of everyday life. Just one tiny thing. It's full of ants and spiders.
Oh, I want them gone.
You've poured love, money, and effort into your lakeside retreat. Don't let ants and spiders ruin your summer. You need BuzzBoss, Canada's trusted pest control experts. Their licensed technicians protect your property from outdoor pests with 100% guaranteed results. Trust BuzzBoss Home Pest Defense for pet, kid, and eco-friendly pest solutions. BuzzBoss.com.
It's like a locker room, minus the smell.
Ew.
Kevin Carius brings the banter, the buzz, and the bold sports talk. Weekday mornings from 7 to 11 on Sports 1440, Edmonton's home for sports. This is Hoop City with your host, Paul Sir, on your home for hoops. Sports 1440.
Welcome back. Papa was a Rolling Stone. Temptations, last of our songs today on a Temptations Saturday. If you can check them out on YouTube, the music is great in and of itself, but you've got to watch how they performed. They were trailblazers in every sense of the word. So always worth listening to and watching the Temptations perform. Okay, and by the way, Brandon, have I convinced you yet? Are you going to rush out of here, get your tablet and look at and watch the Temptations?
You've done a pretty good job. I was familiar with obviously some of the big name tracks and the more mainstream ones. A few that I had not come across before we dipped into on the show today. So I'm kind of like you, Paul. It's a little bit unique growing up in a little bit smaller town. Some of it's usually country music, maybe some rock and roll, and not a whole lot else. And I love those as much as anybody. But I just like good music, and I think the Temptations, without a doubt, falls into that category. So yeah, I might have to get a little on the playlist for my drive south back to Delburn for this afternoon.
You will be better off for it.
Mm-hmm.
That will be great because they were real trailblazers, like I said, in terms of their presentation on stage. And so much of what you see today, obviously, whether it's in sport or in performance, in performing arts, it started somewhere, and people had to invent it literally or evolve into it and come about. Like you look in basketball, just to make the jump over to the sport we're talking about, and the effect of Bob Cousy that evolved into Pistol Pete Maravich, that really Pistol Pete changed the game completely. And so much of what is going on today in terms of ball handling skills emanates literally from Pistol Pete. Connie Hawkins, Gus Johnson evolves into Connie Hawkins, evolves into Dr. J, evolves into Michael Jordan. There are these transcendent players. And what I think is great, Brandon, we're witnessing a couple of them right now in Wemby, and we're in Wemby at his size and with his skill set, and Cooper Flagg coming in as a 19-year-old and being able to do all that he does, and Con Kneppel doing all that he does. Dylan Harper, my gosh, when you were watching the San Antonio Spurs play and watching Dylan Harper play, and you say, that guy's 20? Everybody on the Spurs lineup last night, there was one time when everybody on the Spurs lineup was under 22 years of age. It's incredible how good players are becoming. There are issues, though, that come up on occasion, and I think something that permeates all sports right now was had a spotlight shown upon it this last week in Edmonton when the Edmonton Youth Basketball Association actually put out a video. Jay Willett, the longtime president of EYBA, put a video out talking about the problems that they're having with behaviors at games. And this is from both players and from parents. And the number of suspensions that they've had in youth basketball games of both parents and players that are going way up. And basically what Jay was doing was petitioning with people to tame their behavior down, take it down a notch. And I would throw my voice into that because we saw it when I was executive director over at the Alberta Basketball Association, and we would run our youth provincial championships. And the number of parents that would be freaking out on the sideline, literally for what we used to call mini boys, which is under 11, mini boys and mini girls, and having parents freaking out on officials. And, you know, some of it's inexperience. It's the first time you've seen your son or daughter play in a pressure-packed event. But we really do, across all the sports, have a problem with parents getting carried away in situations that, you know what, folks, it isn't that big a deal. What seems like it's the end of the world right now, and I know as a parent, I overreacted. So I'm speaking with some humility here because there were times when I overreacted on the sideline. So I know what it's like, but I look back and go, my gosh, what was I thinking? So I would try to get in front of this by saying, folks, it just isn't that important. Support your kid and respect the fact that officials are out there and they have a tough job. So freaking out really doesn't do any good. And it sets a terrible example for your children. So I wish EYBA success. The Stingers play tonight at 7:00, I believe, over at the Expo Center. It'll be on CBC Gem, hosted by our good friend Doug McLean, along with Mark Majot on the sideline and Dave Drabiak doing the color. Head on over and watch the Stingers play live or on CBC Gem. At this time every week, we play this song. It's called David's Song, written and performed by my son, Ben, with his band, Worst Days Down. It was a tribute to a young man, David Finkelman, who was a dear friend of our family, who was tragically killed in a car accident when a careless driver struck him at a street corner. We lost our son, Ben, just over 3 years ago as he battled trauma and addiction and mental health issues. And I say that not to focus on the sadness. That's for us to live with, but rather on what we can take from the lives of these tremendous young men who were so concerned about others. And my son, Ben, in particular, that I know firsthand how he treated people with kindness, particularly people that were having a real tough time in life. And let's think the best of each other. Let's be kind to our brothers and sisters. We can't walk a mile in their shoes. And so make sure you're kind and think the best, act the best. And for goodness sakes, for the people in your life that you love, make sure you not only tell them that, but show them that you love them as well. Those are the most precious commodities, and they'll mean the most to you as your life goes on. Brandon, it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Paul. Pleasure's all mine. Glad to be here.
It was a great show. Thanks to our guests, Jacob Ochecki and Joey Slattery. We look forward to being back with you next week. So have a great week on and off the court. Be safe. And you have been listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with Brandon Douglas, on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is your supplier of maximum comfort, bringing you the cool AC you need. You just have to
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort at night when the hot air suffocates you.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort in your wallet with no payments or interest for 1 year.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
You deserve comfort. Cool off today with AC from Legacy Heating and Cooling.
All the protection you want, none of the weight. Introducing Timberland Pro's Boondock Ultra Light Work Boots, the lightest Boondock yet, with the Timberland durability you expect. Conquer long shifts, move faster, and work safer with all-day comfort in a lightweight package. Find your Boondock